The call across the stars. The Zaarthi collective was dying. For millennia, their people had carved a place in the galaxy by trading knowledge, weaving diplomacy, and relying on their allies. They were engineers, philosophers, artists, builders of bridges and dreamers of peace. But they were not warriors. Their fleets were designed for escort, not war. Their soldiers were guardians, not killers. Against raiders and pirates, this had always been enough. Against the endless tide of the Kreth, it was nothing. The Kreth were not just conquerors. They were a swarm, a plague in chitin and mandibles. They did not enslave, they did not bargain, and they did not take prisoners. They consumed. Every planet they touched was stripped down to the bare rock, every city reduced to husks, every species erased from memory. To the Zaarthi, who valued creation above all else, their very existence was an abomination. The collective's High Council gathered in the crystal spire of Zaarn, the capital world's shining heart. Holograms shimmered around them, showing fleets burning, colonies screaming for help, and Kreth hives spreading like infection across their once proud systems. Transmission confirmed, intoned Counselor Urath, her pale crest trembling. We have lost 4 more worlds in as many cycles. The Kreth fleet converges on Zaarn. We cannot hold. The chamber erupted in panic. Some argued for surrender, others for last stands, still others for scattering their people to the stars. But amidst the fear, Counselor Erend stood tall. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with desperation. Send the call, he said simply. The others fell silent. They knew what he meant. The emergency beacon, an ancient failsafe, woven into the collective's very foundation. It was never meant to be used. To send it was to admit weakness, to announce to the galaxy that the Zaarthi could no longer stand on their own. But what choice did they have? The beacon was activated. A piercing transmission tore across subspace, riding faster-than-light relays and communication webs. Its message was simple. We are the Zaarthi. We are falling. To any who can hear us, help us before we are erased. The signal burst outward like a scream in the dark. The Zaarthi believed it would reach their allies, the Elorian Star Empire, Guardians of the Core, the Ythri Ascendancy, machine minds whose fleets were unmatched in scale, perhaps even the distant NYTH, who prided themselves on defending the weak. Surely someone would hear. Surely someone would answer. But subspace is unpredictable. Waves distort. Signals twist. And sometimes, messages slip through cracks in ways no one expects. This time, the cry for help did not reach the Elorians or the Ythri. It skipped past them, bouncing through forgotten relay networks, until it brushed the edge of a listening station in orbit around Neptune, a Terran outpost, small and quiet, where a handful of human operators tracked cosmic noise and stray transmissions. At first, they thought it was a trick of the system. Static, interference. But when the translation software began parsing the alien words into English, the room fell silent. We are falling. To any who can hear us, help us before we are erased. The technicians exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity had made contact with the wider galaxy only a few decades ago, and the encounters had been less than friendly. The other species called them deathworlders, a name spoken with equal parts awe and fear. To live on Earth, a world of crushing gravity, unstable climates, and countless predators, was to forge a species uniquely adapted for survival. Other civilizations viewed humanity as dangerous, unpredictable, too violent to be trusted. The humans, for their part, wore the label like armor. The message was routed to Earth within minutes. The halls of Terran High Command buzzed with energy as linguists confirmed the translation, and strategists pulled data on the Kreth. The reports were grim. The Kreth consumed entire systems. They were growing stronger with every victory. Not our fight, muttered General Orlov, staring at the holographic display of the Kreth fleet movements. We don't owe these aliens anything. Not yet, replied Admiral Serrano, her dark eyes narrowing. But if the Kreth keep spreading, how long before they reach our colonies? How long before Earth itself? The debate raged for hours. Some argued humanity should stay silent, let the Zaarthi perish, and wait for the swarm to strike someone else. Others saw opportunity. A chance to demonstrate humanity's strength to the galaxy, to remind the elder species that deathworlders were not to be dismissed. Finally, the Terran president gave the order. Prepare the fleet. If we are to answer this call, we do not go as saviors. We go as warriors. Let the galaxy see what Earth does when it chooses to fight. On Zaarn, the Zaarthi waited in terror. Days passed. Their sensors picked up nothing but the approaching Kreth swarm. Their last fleets stood ready for a final, hopeless defense. Counselor Yiraath whispered prayers into the void, begging for an answer. Counselor Erend sat in silence, watching the stars. And then, hyperspace tore open. Dozens of vessels emerged, their hulls angular and black, bristling with weapons that glowed like molten steel. Railgun barrels extended like claws, missile bays yawned wide, and drone swarms spilled into formation with mechanical precision. The Zaarthi watched in awe and dread as the newcomers identified themselves. A single transmission, blunt and uncompromising, broadcast across the system. This is the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We received your call. The Kreth will not reach your world. The Zaarthi were stunned. Who were these humans? Their ships lacked elegance, their voices carried no poetry, their arrival was not with banners of peace, but with the promise of war. And yet, in the darkness of despair, the Zaarthi felt something they had not felt in months. Hope. For when Earth answered, it did not bring mercy. It brought fury. Deathworlders in the void. The first time the Zaarthi saw a Terran warship fire, it was like watching a star go to war. The Kreth swarm had arrived at the edge of the Zaarn system. Their hive ships crawled through space, monstrous silhouettes bristling with biological spines and organic cannons. They moved in grotesque unity, thousands of vessels acting as one, a living tide of chitin and hunger. To the Zaarthi, they were nightmares given form. To the Terrans, they were targets. The Terran fleet advanced in silence, sleek ships moving like predators through the dark. The flagship, TNS Vindicator, took point, its massive hull gleaming with battle scars from conflicts the Zaarthi could scarcely imagine. Around it, cruisers, destroyers, and carriers fell into brutal efficiency, their formations tight, their maneuvers rehearsed to perfection. Admiral Serrano stood on the bridge, her expression hard as carved stone. She didn't speak of honor or glory. She gave orders with clipped precision, her tone betraying no emotion. Target hive ship Theta 9. Fire on my mark. All batteries, full salvo. The command went out. Railguns thundered in silence, kinetic slugs the size of trucks streaking through the void at hypersonic speed. Missiles ignited, trails of light carving through the darkness. Drone swarms surged forward, darting like metallic hornets, weaving between Kreth spines and tearing at their defenses. And when the first Terran salvo hit, a Kreth hive ship exploded in half. The Zaarthi, watching through their trembling sensors, were stunned. They had fired on the Kreth before, countless times, and their weapons had barely dented the swarm's living armor. But the Terran munitions didn't just dent. They annihilated. Hive ship Theta 9, a monstrosity that had consumed 3 Zaarthi colonies, ruptured in a blossom of fire and shattered chitin. Limbs the size of skyscrapers spun off into the void. The swarm screeched across subspace, their collective roar trembling even through translation filters. The humans didn't flinch. Rotate batteries. Target Theta 10. Maintain pressure. No survivors, Serrano ordered. Her officers complied with frightening discipline. Every ship, every fighter, every drone moved as though they were extensions of her will. Where the Zaarthi fought with hesitation, the Terrans fought with lethal intent. There was no pause, no mercy. Every shot was designed to kill. The Kreth retaliated, spewing acid clouds and spined projectiles. Organic torpedoes streaked through space, glowing with bioplasma. Any other fleet would have crumbled under the swarm's fury. But the Terrans didn't scatter. They absorbed the storm, shields flaring and armor plates glowing red-hot. When a destroyer was struck and began venting fire, it did not retreat. It accelerated, ramming its wreck into a Kreth carrier before detonating its reactor in a brilliant explosion. The Zaarthi gasped. To them, the idea of sacrificing a ship so coldly, so deliberately, was unthinkable. To the humans, it was doctrine. For hours, the battle raged. The Kreth poured forward in endless waves, but each wave broke on the wall of Terran steel. Every swarm tactic was met with a counterstrike. When the Kreth tried to encircle the fleet, Terran carriers unleashed coordinated fighter wings, carving a hole through their flank. When hive ships released boarding pods, automated gunships hunted them down mid-flight, shredding them before they reached hulls. It was not simply battle. It was slaughter. From the safety of their planetary defense stations, the Zaarthi counselors watched with awe and unease. Counselor Urarath whispered, "They fight like predators." Counselor Erend, ever the pragmatist, replied, "No. Predators hunt to feed. These humans fight to erase." And indeed, erasure seemed to be the goal. Terran forces gave the Kreth no chance to retreat, no time to regroup. Every ship destroyed was followed by sensor sweeps to ensure fragments were eliminated. Drones swarmed over wrecks, planting charges to burn away any organic remnants. It was total, uncompromising war. Hours later, the last Kreth ship cracked apart, drifting lifeless into Zaan's sun. The void was littered with burning carcasses, Kreth flesh sizzling in vacuum, blackened husks tumbling through the abyss. The Terrans stood victorious. Not a single Kreth vessel had survived. When the comms opened between fleets, the Zaarthi expected words of comfort, perhaps assurance that they were now safe. Instead, the Terran admiral's face appeared on their holofeed, her eyes sharp, her voice steel. "This system is secure. For now. But the Kreth will come again. They always do. When they return, Earth will be ready. She gestured with a flick of her hand, as though addressing not allies but liabilities, must decide if you will stand with us or cower behind us. Humanity does not bleed for free." The words struck the Zaarthi like a blade. They had called for help expecting saviors. What they had received were merciless warriors who treated war not as a burden, but as their element. Later, in the Crystal Spire, the High Council debated what they had seen. "They are brutal," Urarath said. "Cold. They terrify me." "They terrify me too," Erend admitted, "but terror is what we need." The Kreth could not be stopped by philosophy. They could not be bargained with. Only fury could match them. And fury is what humanity brings. Across the stars, reports of the battle spread. Other species watched, horrified and fascinated, as fragments of the Terran fleet's broadcast leaked through smuggler channels. They saw deathworlders fight, not with desperate survival, but with deliberate, overwhelming wrath. The galaxy had long dismissed humanity as dangerous, but isolated. A curiosity. A warning, not a threat. Now they realized the truth. The deathworlders had ships. They had armies. They had leaders unafraid to unleash fire without hesitation. And when they answered a cry for help, they did not come to rescue. They came to destroy. Fury delivered. The Kreth never expected resistance of this magnitude. Their fleets had torn through dozens of civilizations before. The Zaarthi were simply another conquest. But when the Terran armada emerged from hyperspace, the battlefield changed instantly. Human ships were not elegant like the Elorians, nor vast like the Ythari. They were blunt, angular, bristling with railguns, coil cannons and missile bays. Each vessel carried not just soldiers, but entire doctrines of asymmetric warfare. They unleashed swarms of drones, kinetic strikes from orbit, and weapons designed not to win duels of honor, but to annihilate swarms. On the ground, human marines dropped in fire and steel. Clad in exosuits, wielding weapons that could tear through chitin, they advanced with a brutality that stunned both Kreth and Zaarthi alike. To the Kreth, who relied on overwhelming numbers, humanity was a paradox. Deathworlders who fought like predators, not prey. They refused to break. They killed with efficiency, not rage, and yet their every move radiated fury. The wrath of Earth. The battle raged for weeks, but the outcome was decided in days. Kreth fleets shattered against Terran formations, their hives burned under orbital bombardments, and their swarms were slaughtered by precision strikes and relentless ground offensives. The Zaarthi, watching in awe, realized the truth.